It's been a year since I started microdosing and experimenting with psychedelics, and it's crazy to think that all of this happened within the last year, but yet a year ago feels like a lifetime ago in terms of my spiritual and psychological and emotional development. So in this video, I'm going to try my best to find the words to capture a year's worth of changes in one video. I'm going to break this video down into 4 parts. Number 1, I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of my mental health before all of this began. Number 2, I'm going to describe the microdosing protocol that I use. Number 3, I'm gonna share with you 5 ways in which my life has improved since I started microdosing. And number 4, we're gonna end off on viewer Q&As. I don't know if you guys all know how bad my mental health was before all of this began. I am somebody who's dealt with depression multiple times in my life. The worst of my depressive episodes actually resulted in a full-blown diagnosis of clinical depression. I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder rooted in childhood trauma. Before I even had the language to describe it or understand it, all I knew was I had this compulsion to constantly be achieving and striving and bettering myself, quote unquote, because if I wasn't moving forward, then I would be reminded of how empty I was and how exhausted I was. I had a lot of social anxiety. I had a lot of generalized anxiety, spent almost 50% of my adult life on some form of antidepressant, and I'm in my late 20s now. This is part of the reason why I'm so passionate about mental health, because for so long it felt like it was a code that I was trying to crack. I've done EMDR, I've done a lot of self-study and therapy once a week for almost 4 years. 2019, I decided to taper off my antidepressant and I worked with my doctor. We arrived at a tapering schedule which we thought would be manageable. It ended up resulting in 6 weeks of pure hell. Made a video about this, but essentially 2 weeks of brain zaps and vomiting, followed by 4 weeks of daily migraines in which I was in the worst pain of my life, couldn't move. I was debilitated, went to the ER twice. They couldn't do anything about it. They just, gave me a shot in my arm and sent me home, and the next morning it would be rinse and repeat. The same debilitating pain, the worst that I'd ever been through in my life. It was terrible, but I stuck with it, whereas I would have understood anybody else in my position probably would have gone back. It was really that bad. After all that experience was over and I was finally in the clear, I made a promise to myself that I would never go back on conventional antidepressants again, no matter how depressed I might get in the future. That inspired a desire in me to really learn about all the different holistic measures of bettering my mental health. Here's the interesting part. December 2019 was when a friend referred me to a company that sold raw magic mushrooms in capsule form for microdosing. I thought that was such a strange idea. I had never heard of microdosing before. I didn't even know you could take psychedelics for self-improvement purposes. I had done magic mushrooms recreationally once or twice before this, but I had never taken small doses for the purpose of mental clarity, alleviating anxiety, so I was really curious. The friend gave me 2 caps to try. One was 250 milligrams, turned out to be too big for me, and then 125 milligrams, which worked out much better. Either way, on both doses, I immediately noticed that it was no longer so much of a struggle just to get things done, and my social anxiety went away, and in its place was a general sense of being present, which wasn't a feeling that I was too used to. Needless to say, I wanted more. And so I got my friend to hook me up, and January 2020 was when I really started to microdose regularly. This is gonna be a section of do as I say, not as I did. And I'm gonna complain with you guys. When I started microdosing, I had no clue what the heck I was doing. I didn't do the due diligence that so many of you guys are doing today when you ask me such good questions in the comments section. Even the caps that I received from my friend, on the packaging, it contained specific instructions. I pretty much disregarded them from the very get-go. I thought if 1 cap a day was good, then surely 1 cap every day would be even better. Lo and behold, I started noticing a tolerance developing very quickly, and that was my cue to take more. So then I started taking 2 caps a day and then 3 caps a day, and 2 months later, I found myself on the verge of adding a 4th cap to my daily regimen. And that was when I realized, hey buddy, you should probably go on a break, because at this point I was also experiencing some mild side effects like dry mouth, mild gastrointestinal issues, and insomnia. So finally, I took 2 weeks off. I was told that if you take 2 weeks off, it would restore your tolerance by 100%. And thankfully, my side effects went away pretty much immediately when I took that break. Once the 2 weeks was over, I committed to sticking to a structured protocol. I took 1 day on, 2 days off. Really, I can't even specifically say that this was the specific structured protocol that I used, because even as I was trying to adopt more of a regular schedule in which I wasn't overdoing it, I was still allowing some room to listen to my body and to adjust accordingly. So if there were days that I was doing 3 days on, then I would adjust by taking the next 4 days off. There was really no rhyme or reason other than the fact that the second time around, I really took it upon myself to do it more responsibly this time and be mindful of tolerance, which I was. By the way, in a future video, we're going to talk about the Stamets stack, because I wish I'd known about that. If I did, I probably would have done that and saved myself a lot of trouble. Here's the interesting part. Something happened in June where I woke up one day and I was about to take my cap, but in that moment, I decided, you know what? I don't think I need to be doing this anymore. I think I can do without it. My anxiety had gone away. I was certainly not depressed, and I felt pretty confident that I could continue to maintain the sense of mindfulness that had been such a hallmark of the previous months. Lo and behold, I was correct. I stopped microdosing regularly, but I was able to maintain that sense of quality of life. I will say though, since June, I have continued to microdose here and there, like on days when I felt like I needed a little mini mental reset, or when I wanted to get a little deeper in my meditation practice, I would take a cap here and there, maybe like once a month. But June was when I stopped microdosing regularly. Now for the fun parts. These are the changes that have happened in my life ever since I started microdosing. Number one, my PTSD episodes have become fewer and farther in between. So with complex PTSD, you get emotional flashbacks. I used to get at least one flashback a week. Now I get one flashback maybe every I can't even say every 2 to 3 months, because literally the last flashback that I got was over 2 months ago. And most days these days, it's almost as if I don't even have c-ptsd anymore. I don't want to say that I'm completely cured, because who knows when my next flashback is going to be, but certainly these improvements have been monumental for enhancing my quality of life. Number two, I no longer experience anxiety, and I haven't been depressed since I started microdosing. Anxiety is something that I can speak pretty confidently on, because it just doesn't affect my life anymore. Even things like overthinking and rumination, I think I can count on 2 hands the number of instances in which I have engaged in rumination over the past year, which I think it's incredible considering last year was 2020. Like you, I went into lockdown. I stopped seeing my friends. I lived alone. There were plenty of opportunities to stew in isolation and loneliness. If there was ever a year to become depressed, I think last year probably would have been the year. But instead, 2020 turned out to be my best year yet for mental health, which is strange. I feel strange saying that, but it's the truth. Number 3, microdosing has enhanced my ability to navigate uncertainty. This stems from the fact that microdosing has helped me achieve a sense of mindfulness in my day-to-day life. And one of the consequences of being more mindful is that you learn that everything you need can be found in the present moment. You are whole. You are safe in this moment. The fact that you can take refuge in your place of comfort in the present, in spite of everything else that might be going on around you, if you really lean into that and train yourself to become familiar with that feeling, then over time, it will start to feel intuitive to you that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay in the future because you're okay now. Does that make sense? But I think that this principle of being able to navigate uncertainty by being rooted in the present moment, that might have been the most powerful principle in terms of advancing my career. In the beginning, hardly anybody was watching my videos, and there was a long period in which I was creating videos consistently and I was hardly finding any viewers. I'll give you an example. It took me 7 months to get my first 700 subscribers. If I had been afraid of uncertainty, I wouldn't have stuck with with YouTube as long as I did to finally get to the place where now I'm finally seeing a little bit of traction. What really did it for me was that I really wasn't concentrating on the future. I was concentrating on what I enjoyed in the present. I knew that, there was a chance that people would find what I was doing helpful. And as long as that was my conviction, that was enough to get me going. The fourth way in which microdosing has improved my life is that it's just made me happier. And I want to even just say happy, period, because this is a feeling of contentment that hasn't really faded. It's been enduring since I started microdosing last year. It doesn't mean that I'm on a high all the time. It just means that in any given moment, I feel fine just as I am. I no longer feel like I need anything compulsively, so I don't engage in compulsive actions. I have tapered my drinking. I no longer eat junk food to cope with stress. I do sometimes, but not as much anymore. On top of that, here's the best part, to me at least. I've become a lot less materialistic. I now value experiences more than things, whereas in the past it was all about things. Now it's about experiences. And I never thought I'd be the type of person to be saying that, but that's who I am now. Number 5, microdosing has changed my personality for the better. And I'm going to assume that you guys all watched my last video about the ways in which psychedelics can change your personality structure for the better, because an understanding of the 5-factor model is going to make this section of the video so much more streamlined. This is how my personality has changed ever since I started microdosing. My openness score has slightly increased, only slightly because I had already had a high openness score to begin with. My conscientiousness score moderately increased, which is great. Extroversion slightly increased. Agreeableness slightly increased. And here's the part that I am the happiest about. My neuroticism score has significantly decreased since I started microdosing. Very quickly, before we move on to Q&As, I have to address some of the limitations of the scope of this video so far. I can't conclusively say that every improvement that I've just listed has been the direct result of microdosing, because one of the other things that I introduced into my life over the past year was a regular meditation practice in which I was meditating twice a day. And certainly that had a lot to do with cultivating a newfound sense of mindfulness and contentment in my life. Microdosing and meditating create an entourage effect. They're great on their own, but together they are even better. So if you are looking to start a microdosing protocol, I would also highly recommend that you take up meditation as well. And if you are currently a seasoned meditator, try meditating while on a microdose and see what that does, because that might just be the thing that helps you sort of take your meditation to the next level. If I had to choose between the two though, in terms of which one had the most influence on me last year, I would choose microdosing, and here's why. A lot of people liken psychedelic therapy to meditation on steroids. And while not everybody can just immediately get into a deep meditation practice, because that can take a long time to train, certainly almost everybody can take a dose of psilocybin. Now for the Q&As. Question number 1, did microdosing affect your libido, sort of like how antidepressants affect your libido? I'm going to be really lame here because I haven't been dating for the last 2 years, and I'm very happy not dating, and I don't want to get into it, but that's just where I am. But I will say that in early studies conducted on couples who were given LSD in a supportive setting, women within the coupling reported that their sexual desire for their partner had increased, while men in the coupling reported that this sense of intimacy within the relationship had increased. What I gather from that is that at the very least, microdosing or using psychedelics isn't going to impact your libido in a negative way, but if anything, within a couple, it might increase the sense of intimacy, and that might impact your sexual desire. I would also suspect that many of you guys could have questions about whether microdosing would yield other side effects that are linked to antidepressants as well, such as night sweats, insomnia, those things. Those things, once I stuck to a proper microdosing protocol in which I wasn't overdoing it, I didn't experience any side effects at all. Whereas when I was on my antidepressants, especially on a higher dose of antidepressants, I would experience terrible side effects like dry mouth, night sweats, all of that. And those would stay with me, because it's not like you can just take antidepressants one day and then go off another day. I would know, right? Pharmaceutical antidepressants and psychedelics don't work the same way in the brain. And getting into the exact mechanisms of how they work differently is beyond the scope of this video. I will share with you this study. This study revealed reveals that psilocybin-assisted therapy seems to stimulate emotional responsiveness in the brain. On the other hand, conventional antidepressants are known for producing the opposite effect, i.e. they blunt your emotions. One of the authors of the study was quoted as saying that they believe that this could be a reason for why psilocybin-assisted therapy has been shown to be so effective for curing treatment-resistant depression, whereas antidepressants haven't been shown to cure treatment-resistant depression. Number 2, did you notice a difference in strains? I have only done one strain of magic mushrooms, and it was a strain that was available to me because access, as you guys know, is a huge issue, and I'm not exactly a mycologist. The strain that I used was Golden Teachers. Thankfully, it's a popular strain. Number 3, why do I get sleepy from 200 milligrams of psilocybin mushrooms? I am 185 pounds. First off, try lowering your dose. If you're taking pre-measured caps, don't be afraid to break them open and put small amounts of the powder on your tongue. The primary effects should kick in within 30 minutes if you're on an empty stomach. Secondly, if you lower your dose and you're still getting sleepy, try sticking with some sort of protocol for a little while longer, like a few weeks, just to see if things balance out for you. As you're microdosing, your brain is forming new pathways and it's stimulating the growth of new neurons. So this is going to take a while for those pathways to become your new norm. So just give it time. Number 4, do you feel that microdosing has led to an increase in your overall life satisfaction? Absolutely, 100%. Number 5, do you feel that when you've not microdosed for a day, you are running on a lower level? So this is something that I want to address more in depth. Many of you guys watching this are, especially those who are just about to begin a microdosing protocol, you're probably at a place that I was at before I started microdosing, in that your happiness setting is dialed down a little lower. You might be going through depression, you might be experiencing anxiety, and you're looking for something to lift you out of that. If you microdose and you take a day off or two and you find that you're on a lower level on those days off, it's not because you're coming down from the drug. It's because you were already at a lower level to begin with. That's what I would guess. I mean, I can't say for sure because I don't know your exact situation, but I do know that these drugs aren't habit forming. And so much of what contributes to whether or not something is habit forming is the feeling of withdrawal you get when you're not using that drug. That's it for our video today. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If there is a question that I haven't addressed, feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section below. I used to be able to get back to every comment pretty much the same day, but now I find that if I'm not prioritizing my workflow, then it becomes a little difficult to sort of keep up the consistent uploading routine. So if I am a little bit late to answering your question, that would be why, but I do try to make an effort to answer every question I get, except for sourcing. Please don't do that. Please don't ask me here, okay? Anyways, if you like this video, give this video a like, and I will see you guys next time.
I practice what I preach. They lie, you put her out my way, then get lost to see. Not sure what you wanted, but I'm what